Hello, and welcome to Cover to Credits, the bi-weekly podcast where we discuss books and their movie adaptations. I'm Ian George.
And I'm Adina Hilton. In this episode, we'll be discussing Twilight. Twilight was written by Stephenie Meyer and published in 2005.
And the film adaptation came out in 2008 and was directed by Catherine Hardwicke.
And we are so excited to be talking about Twilight with you guys.
It's so... First things first, okay?
Let's get things started.
Yeah, Twilight gets a bad rap.
It does.
And I'm not saying that any of the Twilight books are good per se.
No.
But we've always enjoyed the movies a lot. Mm-hmm. Every time we catch them on TV, we just have to watch them.
Yeah, because it's so fun. And it's like, people love to hate on things. People love to hate on things, you know, books and movies and everything else pretty much. But sometimes it's okay to just enjoy something. And it doesn't have to be like high class literature. It doesn't have to be some art house film. You know, it can just be fun and you can just enjoy it, and that can be okay.
Yeah. And, you know, I think a lot of people who would say they enjoy the Twilight movies are so quick to be like, oh, well, it's ironic. It's in an ironic way.
Yeah.
But I think that I don't care about that distinction.
No.
If it's entertaining, it's entertaining.
Yeah. It's doing something right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I feel the same way about books. So because I work in a library and I'm working towards getting my library degree, like I'm obviously pro books in every way. But I think something that speaks really strongly to me is people feeling ashamed about what they're reading. Mm-hmm. And to me, like, though I might criticize certain books or call them out on specific things, you know, I never want to have that mentality where I think if people are reading something that's different than me, then it's less than, you know, that idea that like, oh, chick lit is like not intellectually stimulating, or if you read graphic novels, it's not the same, or if you listen to audiobooks, you're cheating, you know, nothing like that. You know, if you like what you're reading, then you're reading, and that's the important part.
Yeah. And I think that's especially an important thing for kids when they're reading young.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think some parents try to push their kids to read larger or more advanced books too soon. It's like, as long as they're reading anything, that's great.
And if they're enjoying it, like that's what matters. And that love of reading is the most important thing. So basically what I'm saying is, like, I don't care what kind of book or what kind of movie you like. You know, I'm not going to attack that. And I think it's fine to like those things.
Yeah. That being said,
that doesn't stop me from pointing out some things that I think are
worth pointing out in Twilight.
Yeah. And we are not here to just talk about how fun Twilight is.
Yeah. I like I don't know. I haven't watched a Twilight movie that I didn't like.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny because like when the last two came out, I remember specifically kind of like hanging out with some friends and some people and being kind of like, we should just like go see the Twilight movie.
Yeah.
Like, let's just go to the theater and see it, and kind of going and us all kind of like agreeing to it and almost not wanting like one person to be too strongly promoting it, you know, like not wanting to seem too interested, but also kind of being like, yeah, like let's go see it. Like it seems fun and I kind of want to see what happens, you know? So. Well,
and it's kind of interesting because like it was almost like a similar situation for me in high school / middle school when this was such a craze, you know, and so many of the girls in my classes were reading it and were just like so into it and were like, you know, suggesting it and everything. And of course, every guy was like, oh, like rolling their eyes at it and scoffing it. But I was really curious and kind of wanted to read it just because so many people were reading it.
Yeah, and were interested and loved it.
I want an opinion on it. I don't want to just, but I never did bring myself to actually pick it up.
I'm so proud of you, babe. You actually read it for this time.
I did. Yeah, I finally got around to reading it.
It's funny because, of course, I was obsessed with this when it first came out. It was like the prime age, 15 or 16, when the first two were out. And so I just ate them up, loved them, read them, couldn't stop. So, you know, 15-year-old Adina is still present in this review. Like, she is still there, and 15-year-old Adina is happy to share this experience with adult Ian.
Yes. Could you feel like 15-year-old Adina, like that part of you that still enjoyed it?
I could still feel it while I was rereading it.
Well, that's good. It's kind of more than I could say in some ways, but we'll get into it. So, Twilight, it starts off with the main character, Bella.
Oh, yes. And just so you guys know, disclaimer, we are only discussing the first book, Twilight,
Yes.
and the first movie. We will not be discussing things that happen in later books and movies.
No. So we're introduced to Bella,
Yes.
who's just your average teenage girl,
But not so average.
but not so average, yet is still tremendously average.
Yes. How?
That beautiful contrast.
Yeah.
And she moves to Forks, Washington, and to live with her father.
Yeah.
And it's because her mom just remarried, and
She kind of wants to give him some space, basically.
yeah, her mom wants to travel with her new husband, who's a minor league ball player, and so she decides to kind of let her mom do that, live that part of her life, and she decides to move to Forks with her dad.
Which is like a super adult decision for her to make. And they kind of highlight this super early that Bella is not a normal 17-year-old girl. You know,
Yeah.
she talks about her mom being like really helpless and quirky and like forgets everything and like can't really survive on her own, and that Bella has kind of been taking care of her a lot during their life together.
Yeah.
And you know, she kind of translates this role too later on with her dad, but she's the mature one. You know, she is like old and wise beyond her
Yes,
years.
they definitely push this old soul
Yeah.
kind of idea that she, and it comes out with her friends too, that she's kind of too mature for kind of some of the high school drama. And she takes care. So she moves in with her dad.
Yeah.
And she's always cooking and cleaning.
Oh my God.
And her dad, he's kind of a very like reserved.
He's like a stereotypical, like affectionate but solitary and removed dad.
Yes. So when she first gets to Forks, he
Yeah.
bought her a pickup truck, like a used kind of beater pickup truck, but it's perfect for her and she's super happy about it.
Yeah.
And he can hardly like bring himself to like say like, oh, I bought it because I loved you. He's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's,
I thought
just
you might need it. It's
fine.
It's fine. I'm gruff. I'm a man.
And
yeah, they really push that.
yeah, and I'm fine with that as a starting off point for a character.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it just doesn't go anywhere or do anything.
Yeah, if they did something more with his character. And I think they sort of try to.
Yeah.
But it's just, the whole book is just Bella cooking dinner for him.
Yes.
And I, for one, was sick of it.
Me too.
I was like, what has Charlie been doing?
Yeah, I know.
For the last 17 years, because, you know, Bella's mom left when Bella was just a baby, took Bella with her, and Charlie's been on his own ever since. And it's like,
has he just been like in a cocoon?
yeah,
Like,
he doesn't cook for himself. He doesn't know how to clean things. Like, they even go into this description of Bella hand washing the dishes. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, stop. And there's other parts in the book too, where Bella goes away for the evening or something and is just like, I'll leave some cold cuts for you in the fridge. And he's like, I'm fine, Bella. I survived on my own before you were here. And Bella makes a comment like, I don't know how. And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, men, they can't take care of themselves.
well, more than anything, I think it's just weird that like clearly he has been taking care of himself, even if it's like to a minimal level of human
Yeah.
standards. But
Keeping himself alive, at least.
I find it more annoying that she gets there and she just has this like instinctive, like, I have to clean the house and cook food
Yeah.
and like do all these things.
She's just naturally in a very feminized role.
yeah, and I'm mad at him because he's just like, okay, and
Sure.
I'll just sit on the chair and watch
watch
TV.
the baseball game.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and like, oh man, I've lost my train of thought.
but it is interesting because like Bella's also kind of reserved and like doesn't like talking about her feelings and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is surprising given what happens later in the book, but their roles are interesting. Mm-hmm. So Bella starts high school
Yes.
and we are introduced to a cast of characters.
A cast of characters who may seem important but become not important.
We'll
very
quickly find out
quickly.
how little they matter to anything at all. So we've got her friend Jess.
Yeah.
Who I knew she was in the movie.
Yeah.
But it blew my mind when I saw Anna Kendrick.
I know.
Playing her friend. she's fine.
Yeah.
I think she kind of knew the character of Jess a little bit, and
Yeah.
she played into it. Like, she is kind of a shallow character, and I think Anna Kendrick
kind of just like, let's make her a real bitch. Like,
yeah, I'm just gonna go with this.
Yeah.
So she is good. Should we talk about Mike? Should we just rip this Band-Aid off?
oh yeah, Mike, aka the worst character that's ever been created on the screen and on the page.
He immediately clings to her
Yeah.
as the new girl. Mm-hmm. He follows her around trying to be helpful, but she
She
describes him like
likens him to a puppy.
yeah, and that's a great description because you just know
Yeah.
he like tries to be overly chivalrous.
He's just like, Bella, Bella, Bella. Hey, Bella, it's me, Mike. Hey, Bella, Bella.
She kind of wants to. She is kind of indifferent, I guess.
Yeah.
She doesn't dislike him, and he is friendly enough, and I think she's glad for the company. But
Yeah, but she's not interested in romantically.
no,
And
not
so
at all.
the whole book, or at least the parts where she's at school in the book, she just is doing this dance where she has to like keep him at bay from
Yeah.
like trying to make out with her basically, but also not hurt his feelings too much.
She's always having to think about his feelings.
Yeah.
Which is really frustrating.
It is. It's like, get the hint, Mike. Like, she told you she doesn't want to go to the dance with you. Like, she said no.
Yeah, this is honestly the biggest arc that any character plays is this whole thing involving a dance.
Yeah.
Because Mike asks her to the dance.
Yeah.
And she just lies. She's like, I'm not going to be in town.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, you sure? Like, why do you have to go? And then there's another friend, a guy friend, Eric, who as far as I'm concerned, is totally devoid of characteristics.
No, there's nothing to him. Yeah.
But he asks Bella to the dance, and she's
Yeah.
like, no, I already told Mike.
And then another character, Tyler, asks her to the dance. And it's just like this whole thing where we're supposed to think that Bella's a little ordinary, but at the same time, like, all the boys want to date her.
Yeah. And I mean, I would just assume that's because she's the new girl.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the book's trying to make her up to be, more than she sees in herself.
Yet beautiful and amazing. Yeah.
But like, if that's the whole purpose of this entire plot point, it is like 100 pages of like plot and content.
I feel like the characters in the movie, the school characters, are better in the movie than in the book. Mm-hmm. Like,
yeah.
And that might be counterintuitive because there's less time for them in the movie.
That's why they're better.
But no, but it's just like they don't do anything in the book.
No.
And in the movie, they don't really do anything either. But I don't know, like Eric had more personalities on the school newspaper, Jessica was just kind of funnier, I guess.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Mike,
she wasn't as I don't know what to not bitchy, but she wasn't as you know what I'm saying?
No.
Anyway, Hemingway. No, I agree. I think having actors embody those characters just kind of brought them to life a little
They're
bit
less
more.
flat. And there's less scenes with Mike trying to get with Bella.
Yeah.
Like there's the part where he asks her to the dance in the movie. And then he's kind of like talking to her at the beginning when she first moves there. But like everyone kind of is. So it doesn't stand out too much. And then after that he kind of backs off and we don't see much of Mike anymore. And he's not constantly like trying to talk to her and get her to do things with him and everything. So
But honestly, just the whole setup of school and her friends, it takes so much time in the book.
it does.
And this was my biggest problem, I think, with the writing of the book.
Yeah.
Is that it's this really stream of consciousness kind of writing
Yeah.
where she literally doesn't ever drop, at least at the beginning. She does a little bit more later.
Drop the narration.
Yeah, where it's so it's crazy because like you start to learn, like I learned way too much about like her school day routine. Like it starts off in English class, or Trig. I'm not sure which class it was. I kind of forget. And then she always runs into Mike, and they kind of have, an encounter where Mike's being really annoying. And then she always goes to like lunch, like almost directly after that. And then she'll like see Edward like across the room. And then after lunch, she goes to biology, always biology after lunch, where she sits with Edward. And then they always have like and then after biology, she goes to gym. And then after gym, she goes home, which is bullshit because that's only two classes after lunch. No one ever only has two periods after lunch. But then she goes home and then she like talks to Charlie and then she cooks dinner and then she does some homework and then she's up thinking about stuff and then she goes to sleep and immediately the next morning she wakes up again and she cooks breakfast for Charlie before he leaves early and then she goes back to school in the parking lot and stuff happens and then she goes back to first period.
Oh my God, that's great.
That's like, it's that cycle.
It is. It does. It's very repetitive.
And
at
things
the beginning.
happen, but we always go to gym.
Yeah.
We always have to know what she's doing in gym.
Yeah.
Or always what happens in lunch, even
like,
if
just
Edward's...
skip it.
Yeah.
Skip gym class.
Put a break between the
Yeah.
paragraphs and just jump ahead in time to the next event that happens.
Yeah, and there's a lot of descriptions of her like doing her homework.
Yeah.
Like being at home and like doing her homework and then like making dinner. Stuff like that that's
Yeah.
sort of like okay.
And not even that much is happening in certain points in this narrative.
Yeah.
Like, there's just kind of hints of Edward at this point.
Yeah.
Like, she sees him, and he acts weird, and then he's gone for a while, and then he's back, and then he talks to her once. And, like, those are the main points of this entire narrative.
Stretch.
Yeah. It's way too little content pulled out over a really long time.
And like you're not interested because Bella is not interested. Like she's clearly not interested in anything that she's doing.
She's so apathetic.
Not interested in her friends at all. She's always like only half listening to Jessica and Mike and to her other friends. She's just like, oh yeah, whatever, sure, okay. Like she just doesn't care. The only thing she cares about is Edward. And so that whole part makes it even more boring because you don't care about what's happening. Bella doesn't care what's happening.
Yeah. And this is why the movie's way more effective at this point in the story.
Yeah.
We see her once in gym class and we know she's a total klutz. Okay, that's the only time we see her in gym class.
Yeah, that's enough.
And then we get a few scenes of her in biology with Edward that are significant. Some scenes outside of the school.
In the parking lot.
But
Yeah.
every scene has some amount of significance to it.
To what's happening in the story. Also in the movie, we get that cool biology teacher.
She is the best biology teacher.
Oh my God, he's awesome. He takes them on a field trip to like a composting place where they learn about how to compost and like plant things. It's so amazing.
And he's fun and he's
Yeah.
cool and he's like, here's the compost water. Don't drink it, guys.
It's so fun. I'm like, oh my God, this is much better than the book.
I was so glad at the end credits of the movie.
Yeah.
The way the credits are set up, they show still images of each actor or character from the movie with the actor's name.
Yeah.
And they gave him a spot right at the very end.
Oh,
the
good.
The cool biology teacher. I was so glad to see him.
That was such a highlight. It just made things more interesting.
Yeah, it did.
They're like, oh, we're on a school field trip. Like, let's do this. Yeah.
I was like, I want to know about composting.
Yeah. So this daily routine is interrupted by Bella's interactions with Edward.
Dramatically.
Yeah.
So she spots Edward and his family.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Across the lunchroom.
who are those pale Adonises? And they're like, that's Edward Cullen.
That's the Cullens. They don't hang out with us.
Yeah. And she's immediately infatuated, and following her introduction to Edward in her biology class, Edward is super weird to her.
Yeah. In the movie, he makes like this great face where he just acts like he's smelled like the worst smell or that he's possibly like jizzed in his pants. We don't know.
It's that sudden boner like expression.
It's great. But yeah, he just for some reason hates her and won't talk to her and is like really annoying towards her. And she's like, but why?
And this is like what gets her attention about him.
Yeah.
And it's in a negative way at first, but it still like causes this infatuation.
Yeah.
Because he stops coming to class for like 3 days after that.
Yeah.
And she's like, did I do that? Did I do that?
She's like, why would he? Is this because of me somehow? Also, he's so beautiful.
Yeah.
We get a lot of descriptions of Edward's beauty.
Yeah, about that. at a certain point in the story, I just was so done with it. I
Yeah.
was so done with every description of his voice, his eyes, his
Yeah.
piercing eyes,
His lips.
his lips, the way he stuns her,
Oh yeah, dazzles.
dazzles, the way he dazzles
her.
her, and he argues in a handsome voice, and just every adjective
Yeah.
about him is kind of, and it's
Perfect.
so repetitive. Yeah, his perfect lips and teeth and forehead. It becomes
Yeah.
really.
They talk about his shiny teeth a few times too.
They do. And it's kind of I don't know. It felt like a lot of points like as a substitution for like any kind of characteristics
Yeah,
of-
about him.
that are positive. It's like, well,
Well, he's pretty.
he's pretty. He's like, you're a stupid idiot, he said in a beautiful voice that that made my heart flutter.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is them mentioning her reactions physically to him
Yeah.
constantly. Mm-hmm. She's so frail.
Yeah, that's another thing we didn't mention is she's super clumsy. Mm-hmm. And she's like, oh, I can't even walk. I'm like so delicate and I just fall all the time.
I trip over flat surfaces, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm not good in gym class.
That's why I'm
and
adorable though.
it's my special quirk.
and so it just like invites men to try to come in and save her 'cause she's always almost dying.
Yeah, specifically Edward.
Yeah.
Because during their whole weirdly standoffish, flirty meeting moment,
Yeah.
she almost gets crushed by a car in a high
yeah.
school parking lot
Yeah.
because it hits ice going too fast, and Edward jumps in the way
Mm-hmm.
and stops it.
Yeah.
I really liked this moment in the movie. I thought the effect was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought it was filmed well.
It clearly established him like across the parking lot. She was looking at him and then he's like over there and it's dramatic. And
Yeah. Even the music during that part was like decent. But yeah, so he saves her life in a superhuman way,
Yeah.
and she is insistent on finding out what is up with him
Yeah.
and how he was able to do that. And so this begins their deepening connection.
Relationship. Yeah. It's when he kind of starts talking to her a little more and being more open with her ish. He likes to just say things that don't mean anything. And Bella's like, I don't know what that means.
Oh my God, I know. He's like, he speaks in like the most ridiculous riddles of
Yeah. It's like,
dialogue.
stay away from me. She's like, okay, but why? He's like, I can't tell you.
And it's so funny because on multiple times she says that he speaks like someone from a different age.
Yeah.
I'm like, does he?
Does he? I didn't pick up on that.
I think he's just confusing. I don't know if
I think he just says things and Bella's just like, what does that mean?
I don't even know what you're talking about. So, should we talk about their dynamic a little bit more and why it's so problematic?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, where to begin? I mean, I think it just, a lot of it is because of their characters and the way that they're portrayed. You know, Bella is very portrayed as very feminine in the way that she is kind of shy and quiet and nurturing and etc. Very compassionate, empathetic, all stereotypically feminine traits. And Edward is pretty stereotypically masculine, you know, kind of moody, brooding,
Yeah.
sort of in control and demanding.
Yeah, and even more than just being stereotypically masculine, it's like a clearly like problematic and troubling relationship in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
it is, yeah.
He's constantly telling her what to do. He's always informing her of how dangerous he is.
Yeah.
Yet he's always approaching her, like following her in the halls, being like, "You should stay away from me. I'm bad. I'm dangerous."
As he's like walking next to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be friends. And he's constantly snickering at her.
Like he knows more than she does and is sort of like using that knowledge against her or holding it over her head in a way. Like they're
Yeah.
not on an equal playing field, of course, physically because of the whole vampire thing, but like
Edward's a vampire?
it says it on the back cover, Ian.
Yeah.
I know we haven't talked about it yet, but we all know. But like in terms of their knowledge and emotionally as well.
I mean, he's 108 years old for starters.
I mean, like he holds all the cards.
Yeah.
You know, Bella has nothing except her like smelling nice. You know, like that's the only thing that she is going for her in their relationship, basically. You know.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating because his mood swings and. You know, he's constantly shifting emotions.
Oh, yeah.
Frequently.
From
and being really upset about something, like he gets set off.
Really easily.
Yeah, and it's she acknowledges this.
Yes.
In the story, Bella does.
I have a quote.
Okay,
read. Yeah. So she talks about his mood swings a lot, but one specific quote I thought was really interesting. She said, "It was hard to keep up. His sudden mood changes left me always a step behind, dazed." So she was like, she's afraid of setting him off. And, you know, we know the reason for his mood shifts. It's because he's very tortured and
we get
he's
it.
very sad and he thinks that he's a monster and he doesn't want her to be one too. And he's trying to protect her, but he also is madly in love with her, blah, blah, blah. We understand. But instead of explaining those things to Bella, he just gets angry and snaps at her.
Yeah.
And then Bella's like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
You know? And
he doesn't
is blaming
communicate.
her. Yeah.
And it's just kind of set up to be, oh, he's mysterious.
Yeah.
Which is really problematic, especially when you consider that this book is aimed towards teenage girls.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know when I was in high school and girls were reading this, they were like, oh, Bella's the perfect girl. No, they're like, Edward is like the perfect guy. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, literally, like they were saying things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that means they're going to like run out and like date a guy in real life who is like that.
Yeah.
But I do think it's problematic that it's kind of establishing these ideas as good or normal.
And I mean, it's kind of like a traditional relationship in a lot of ways.
It is.
Like with him having more of the power and Bella sort of just like accepting everything that he is and not really caring if he's like an asshole or a monster. She's just like, oh, but I love him. And like, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
And that love is only won by like saving her life.
yeah.
Because that's her character, is she's just clumsy and somehow manages to like get into all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
This happens again later. She goes with a couple of friends to go dress shopping with them. She's not going to the dance, but she goes dress shopping.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just the one quote in it was,
Oh, yeah.
she talked about like needing this girl time or something. And she described it as an estrogen rush.
Yeah. She's like, the estrogen rush was invigorating.
I was like,
I'm like, okay.
But she goes to this like nearby town to go shopping.
Yeah.
And she leaves them briefly to go to a bookstore. And while she's out around town, she somehow manages to wander into a maze of like warehouses.
Yeah, she's like in a New York City alleyway.
Being stalked by like four like assaulting dudes.
Yeah.
Like rapists.
Cornering her and like clearly, you know, wanting to attack her. And of course, Edward shows up just the right moment to possibly run them over with his car. Possibly not.
And so he saves her. But this is where it's revealed that he stalks her.
Yeah.
He follows her and he watches her when she sleeps.
Yeah.
And this just adds more problems.
I mean, it's convenient that he stalked her at this moment because he saved her.
Yeah. But he's always getting mad at her too. Like he's totally victim blaming her
He
the
is.
whole time.
Yeah. He's like, why are you like a trouble magnet? And she's like, I mean, like, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah, I was almost just assaulted by four men in an alleyway and you're going to give me shit for it, Edward?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he's so enraged by the incident that he asks her to calm him down.
Yeah. Talk him out of it. Yeah.
So after this incident, they go to a restaurant. And I do want to say that I think Edward in the movie is better than Edward in the book.
I think so too.
Edward-
he just has less time to talk.
That's true. I do think his mood swings are less, though.
Yeah.
He has his
broody moments.
He has his broody moments and his angry moments, but it's less frequent, I feel.
Yeah.
This is a good example of, he still does that whole thing in the car where he's like, calm me down.
Yeah.
But after they go to the restaurant where she was supposed to meet her friends, and in the book, Edward is like, you need to eat.
Grumpy and angry.
Yeah, he's like, you need to eat something. It'll make you feel better. She's like, I'm not hungry. He's like, no, you'll feel better. Eat something.
Yeah.
And
practically drags her into the restaurant.
yeah, and at least in the movie, Edward's like, would you like to eat something?
Yeah.
You might feel better. So I do think he's a little bit more accommodating.
Yeah.
Less stereotypically abusive.
Yeah. And I feel like one of the more annoying scenes to me of like his controlling behavior was when, you know, they have just like kissed or made out or something, and Bella wants to drive her truck back, and Edward won't let her drive her own truck back.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh no, like you're too dizzy from like me running through the woods with you, like, and you're drunk on my kisses, so I'm gonna drive.
Yeah.
And it just like he basically was like, no, we're not even gonna discuss this. Like, I'm driving you.
So something we wanted to talk about a little bit, because it's a current event regarding Twilight.
Oh yeah.
And that is Stephanie Meyer releasing a gender-bent version of Twilight.
Yes.
Called Life and Death. Mm-hmm. Which
it goes along with the 10th anniversary edition, so it's just packaged together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you get a book that's Twilight.
And then you turn it around.
And if that wasn't enough for you,
more Twilight.
It's more Twilight again. Just with Microsoft Word find and replace. Yeah. Bella for Beau and Edward for Edith.
Yeah.
But it's, so the interesting thing about this is in interviews, she was talking about why she wanted to write this story. And she said that part of it was, you know, after the movies came out, she kind of felt disconnected from the characters and being able to write for them. Mm-hmm. And so flipping the genders of the characters kind of caused her to like think of the characters differently and kind of reinvigorate,
reconnect to the story,
rediscover them kind of, which is fine, whatever.
Yeah, as like a writing exercise maybe.
Sure. Not what I would release probably. But the other thing that was brought up in multiple interviews is she brings up the fact, or maybe the interviewers bring it up, but I feel like it's because she's brought it up before. Yeah. Is she says that because she was criticized for the gender roles, of the power dynamic, and the power dynamic of the characters in the books, she says that this is an example that they're just people, not these gender roles. Because if you switch them, suddenly they're just people. Well,
what she's trying to show is that the imbalance in power is only because Edward is a vampire.
Oh, that's
not because he's a man. Mm-hmm. So by making a female vampire and a male human, she's trying to show that the vampire still has the power in the relationship.
Yeah, and this just is.
So she just like rewrote the book to prove a point.
To prove a point. She wrote an entire novel to disprove a point, which doesn't disprove it. Because if you write a character or a story where the characters fall into certain stereotypes based on either their race or their gender, and then you're like, well, if they were a different race or gender, you wouldn't be saying this, would you? It's like, no, I wouldn't. But like, you didn't do that the first time. Yeah. Like, I wish she had written it this reversal way.
Yeah, it would have been interesting.
Yeah, no, I haven't. Neither of us has read it.
No.
But I think of, you know, a powerful, kind of dangerous female character and a guy who's maybe like, maybe more vulnerable. Yeah. And kind of
nurturing,
like,
possibly.
And nurturing. Like, that'd be interesting because that's a flipping of your expectations for like the gender roles.
Yeah, it's like just because flipping it people would like better doesn't mean the first one is also okay.
Yeah, because the first time you did it, you put them in those roles. Yeah.
And it's, you know, we don't need another character like Bella. We don't need another character like Edward, you know, just these same structures and everything. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think it's interesting because I don't think Stephanie Meyer intentionally set out to write these stereotypical characters.
No, I don't think she did.
I think, you know, society and like her culture and religion ended up influencing a lot. But I don't know.
Yeah, I just think that and also, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think this is even why she wrote it. I think she wrote it just to kind of even, you know, make some money off the 10th anniversary, to be honest. I think that was probably,
Yeah.
She wanted a release. She still wants to, and that's fine. Like, more power to her. I don't really think she did it entirely to prove this point. But to me, to try to connect that point to this story is kind of a
And to deflect criticism, you know, and
Yeah.
be like, no, I didn't do this thing, you know.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't change anything from my perspective of the
About the
original
story.
source material. No.
No. And it's interesting. We haven't really talked about Stephanie Meyer too much, but for anyone who doesn't know, she is a Mormon and, you know, grew up very conservative and religious, etc. Went to a religious school, married pretty early, and then had 3 children, youngish. And then sort of always liked to read. And then she had a dream about a vampire and a girl talking together about how their relationship would work together. And when she woke up from the dream, she just like had to write it down. So this became the story. And she actually wrote the book in about 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
So it was very quick, very stream of consciousness. And you can tell, like,
Yeah, I
reading
think it
has
definitely
that vibe.
shows. Because there's pacing problems with this story.
Yeah.
The book specifically, like really problematic ones.
Yeah.
Because as we've said, you know, this whole beginning part of her in school and
Yeah.
meeting people and friends and
Just
the
you even
dance.
mentioning it, I'm just like, ugh.
I know. Like, this whole setting of where she meets Edward is just that. It's a setup.
It's just a set.
And
yeah.
then at about this point in the story, it's all dropped.
Yep. We like never hear from her school friends again.
No. Jess
Yeah.
calls once on
Yeah.
the phone. And basically
Wants to talk about the dance.
wants to talk about the dance.
And Bella's like, wait, oh, that's still happening? Like the school world is still out there?
Sorry.
And like the reader is having the same reaction. They're like, we've just had like 200 pages of just Bella and Edward talking in a meadow. Like, I don't know what else is happening in the world.
Yeah. And so at this point in the story, Edward, they're more serious. They had this whole meadow talk
Yeah.
that's really
Dramatic.
and
And him being like, oh, you shouldn't be with me, but maybe I'll eat you still. I'm not sure. And Bella's like, okay.
it is compelling a bit in some ways.
Yeah.
Because you do get the sense of like, this is the moment for Edward, whether he
Yeah.
decides to eat her or date her.
Yes.
A problem many of us have on a
Faced.
daily basis.
So something that I have read and something I was thinking about too, and other people have pointed out, about how this is almost sort of like a metaphor for sex, like sexuality in teens, like almost this dangerous,
Yeah.
like playing with fire type thing where it's like, we shouldn't be together. Yes, we should. I can't stay away. And like them trying to dance around it kind of. And that vampire danger is almost like dangers of sex and
Yeah. And
kind of budding teenage sexuality.
yeah, which is interesting and worth noting because they are so all over each other
Oh, yeah.
this entire
Oh,
story.
my God.
But they do not bang.
They do not.
It does not fit our
Did they bang?
did they bang. Now, neither of them dies at the end of the story.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can still have that criteria based
Because
on until
she
the end of
almost died.
until the yeah, she almost died.
Yeah.
And by the end of the story they still haven't banged.
Yeah.
So
Well, and like there's so many scenes where that would kind of be how things should go or would normally go.
yeah.
And, you know, I get it. They're both like, there's more to think about than just their personal decision about whether they want to have sex. You know, Edward's all about this whole like wanting to protect her and not wanting to hurt her, and sex would be too much for him. But it does sort of feel more like an abstinence thing
Yeah.
instead of just like, I don't want to hurt you.
Your whole mentioning of Stephanie Myers being
Mormon.
being Mormon it definitely shows, I think, through the arc of the entire series.
Yeah.
Because it is very traditional in a lot of ways, which is surprising, given that it's a vampire-human relationship story. But
And she, like, you know, kind of explains it like he's sort of old-fashioned because he was born in, like, 1901, you know?
Yeah.
And Bella, like, wants to have sex with him, but of course Edward gets to make all the decisions in their relationship, so what she says does not matter.
pretty much.
But there's so many scenes where they're, like, really, like, you know, they're really in the foreplay stage, you know. He's like kissing her neck and her ear, and it's very sexual.
Yeah. I'm like, how could you not have sex, like, after all of this
and then he gets
foreplay?
mad at Bella for, like, trying to make out with him too much, and
He's like,
she's like,
"Ah!"
what do you want from me? Like, you've been, like, kissing my neck all afternoon. Like, I don't know what you expect.
He's like, no, you took it too far, Bella. This is on you. So this kind of gets into the vampire part of the story, right?
Yeah.
So basically the high school and high school kids are swapped out for vampires, where we meet Edward's extended family.
And this is after Edward and Bella's long, or I guess this is part of Edward and Bella's long weekend together.
Yeah, this
Which takes up like
continued
half of the book.
huge part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bella goes and meets Edward's family. And so I had to write them down so I don't forget. You have Edward's parent. Now, the whole story is that Edward and his 3 siblings who attend the school were adopted.
4 siblings.
4?
Yeah, he has 4 siblings.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
You wrote them down, Ian.
Oh, yeah, because I didn't include Edward. That's why I was counting it wrong. His 4 siblings. So there's Edward, and then Alice and Jasper, and then Rosalie and Emmett.
Yeah.
And it's weird, and I'm glad the movie acknowledged this.
Yes.
Because Alice and Jasper are together as a couple, and
Yeah.
Rosalie and Emmett are together.
Yeah.
And luckily, Jess is like, yeah, isn't it weirdly incestual
That they live together.
they're siblings, like, legally?
Adopted siblings.
And they live together, but they're totally going out.
Yeah.
Am I the only one who thinks that's weird?
It was a good line.
It was. I'm like, yes, thank you.
Yeah, and Esme and Carlisle are the parents who have adopted.
Yes. And Carlisle is this super handsome young doctor.
Oh, yeah.
And Esme just is at home.
Is a mom.
She's a mom.
She's a mom.
So we're introduced to them, and I really, these are more characters. And
Oh, yeah.
They're more interesting than anyone at the school.
You can tell that Stephanie Meyer actually cares about these characters.
Yes.
And Bella actually cares about these characters because we get like backstory. We get like
Whoa.
personality traits.
What?
We get like interrelationships to each other.
Huh. Yeah, no, it's and it's really disappointing because I'm like, I wish we could have had these characters sprinkled in a little earlier in
Yeah,
the
they're
story.
not introduced at all.
They
till
just
toward
keep
the
their
end.
distance the whole story until this moment, and
Yeah.
that's what adds to this weird shift where suddenly it's, oh, all of these characters you now know, and all the other ones are gone.
Yeah.
So Jasper, 2 of them have. So we didn't even talk about Edward's ability to read minds.
Oh, yeah.
What's
Edward-
wrong with us?
Edward can read minds, except Bella's.
Except Bella's.
That's why
okay.
she's special.
I know we weren't going to talk about other books, but I have to know, do we get a reason why Bella's mind can't be read?
Yes.
Is it like Futurama? Is she her own grandmother?
No.
Or
No, she just like has basically a barrier around her mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was really curious if they were going to like expound on that anymore.
It's like kind of explained, but kind of not explained because like Alice can see her in visions, you know?
Yeah.
And she's not blocked from that. And also Jasper can like influence her with his like emotions because he can influence people to feel
Yeah.
like angry, sad, emotional. So like she's not being blocked from them.
Yeah.
Just Edward and like some other later vampires that show up. Like
And this is a huge driving force for why he loves her, because
Yeah.
he doesn't know what she's thinking.
yeah.
just hears TV static the whole time. So anyway, so Edward has that power, which is
Yeah.
unique. Jasper has the power to influence, like, yeah, like you said, and then Alice can see the future. And then Emmett and Rosalie are just normal, boring vampires.
One of them is strong and one of them is stubborn. That's what
Yes.
they say.
But we find out about Carlisle, the dad,
Oh, yeah.
who is, I wanted a book about Carlisle.
No, Carlisle is the most interesting vampire.
By far.
Yeah.
So we find out that he was the son of a priest in the, what was it, 1400s?
1500s? I don't know.
And they would like hunt vampires and he was like, mostly we just killed innocent people who couldn't defend themselves. But they did eventually like find like a coven of vampires in the sewers. And while they were hunting them, he was bitten and attacked. And he hid because he knew he'd be killed for being like tainted.
Yeah.
And so he was he turned into a vampire and then tried to kill himself but couldn't because he's a vampire now and
Yeah.
is indestructible. But he kind of eventually realized that he could just survive off animal blood and like learn to like rein in his like animalistic cravings.
Yeah, and he goes on this like hundreds of year journey to like master his thirst for human blood so that he can become a doctor and help people. And I'm like, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I love this. He has like a calling, you know. I'm always like, what do vampires do? Like, what do they do? They
Yeah.
don't sleep, they don't eat, so they don't care about, you know, food or rest or you know, they
Yeah.
don't have jobs really. They just kind of like wander around, eat people, and like be moody.
Or attend high school over and over, and
Over and
over and
over.
over again.
But Carlisle, you know, Carlisle is like, this is my calling. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be a doctor, and it gives me satisfaction and it fulfills my life. And I'm like, yes, I want more of this. I want more vampires like having something to do.
Yeah, and all we find out about Edward is like, oh, I was gonna die of the Spanish influenza.
Yeah.
And then Carlisle saved me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I just kind of hung out until I came to Forks.
But he really likes music.
Yeah,
That's like the only interesting
it is. It's his
thing
only. It's his
about
thing.
him.
It's their thing, I guess, because she likes music too.
But not really.
Not really, though.
She's like, I listen to CDs.
Only as much as like a normal person. So yeah, so we find out about Carlisle and Esme because he would only turn people into vampires if they were like on death's door.
Yeah.
And they were gonna die anyway. So that's kind of how this coven came together. And
They all got together. Yeah.
so yeah, it's this interesting portion of the book. It's one of the most interesting portions of the book is
Yeah.
finding out about these characters.
There's a really great scene in the movie where they come to the house and the Cullens are trying to cook in their kitchen. And it's great. I'm like, yes, I want more scenes of them like trying to do human things. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it's so fun. And they're like in the kitchen. They're like, ooh, cutting up some noodles or whatever. I think they're
Yeah.
making like spaghetti or something.
Oh,
And
and
then
I-
Bella has to ruin it and just be like, "Oh, I'm not hungry."
Well, and I love Jasper. Jasper is the newest
Oh my
member of the
God.
coven.
Yes.
And so he's like having the hardest time holding himself back
From killing
From
people.
killing people. So it's good he's just attending a public school.
Yeah.
But when,
So if anyone goes, it's
at
just
least not
boring
a
high schoolers.
yeah. Stuff, at least it's not a private school. But when we're introduced to Jasper, when Jessica is naming off the Cullens at the beginning of the movie,
Yeah.
she's like, and the one who looks like he's in constant pain is Jasper. And it's true.
It's so true.
He kind of has this dazed, like stunned, kind of uncomfortable look to him.
Wounded deer, possibly.
Which makes sense because he's probably like putting all of his willpower in not eating people.
yeah.
So
But it's great. The actor totally commits to it. He's just like all the time in the background of scenes. It's just Jasper just having this like pained expression on his face.
yeah. It's
wonderful.
I also want to say while we're talking about vampires, this is comparing to the other movies, I think this is like the best vampire makeup, I think.
Yeah.
it gets real bad at some point, I think during Eclipse.
Yeah. The makeup isn't too bad in this one. They're pale, but
And I also think it's the way it's filmed. So there's a lot of, this movie has like very distinct colorization.
oh yeah.
It's very, a lot of blues and kind of a cold, like, saturation to all of the colors.
Yeah.
Which I like, it's something.
Yeah, and it feels less, and it's so hard to kind of put your finger on, for me anyway, who is not super familiar with like movie cinematography and filming, but just like it feels less money.
Yeah, it does.
Like it feels less like stupid, pointless things that money does in movies. Like the tone visually is cooler and darker. It's not like these wide, like brightly lit shots. There's like this interesting tone, and it really affects the environment and the mood of the movie too.
Forks feels like a really cool setting and location
that
has a feel to it in this movie as opposed to the other ones, I guess.
Yeah.
And it feels like a very indie movie.
It does.
It's a lot of handheld camera shots. The camera's constantly tilting into like Dutch angles, which is just when the camera's tilted.
Yeah.
But it's not I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's at least something.
It at least makes it interesting.
It's a stylistic choice.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like later movies that are so much more big budget Hollywood are just devoid of any personality or style in certain ways. So I feel like this one was at least a director with a vision.
Yeah, and like good music choices too. I think the soundtrack is really good.
The soundtrack is very good. So can we talk about baseball?
Yes, let's talk about baseball.
The great American vampire pastime.
Who doesn't enjoy baseball?
Certainly vampires enjoy it.
Yes.
So why baseball? I just don't, I love it. I love it.
I'm guessing maybe because it's like an older sport.
I guess. Is it older than other sports, though?
I don't know. I feel like when I think of like the 1920s, I think of baseball.
I think it's funny. This is my theory.
Yeah.
Is that these vampires came to America at some point, or in America, and they're like, we have to fit in. We have to be American.
Okay, everyone needs to learn how to play baseball.
Yes, and we're gonna eat hamburgers every day, or pretend to eat hamburgers. But that's my theory, because when they get together to play this baseball game, they are all wearing like these pinstripe kind of Yankee uniforms that look like they're from the 1920s.
They look like they're from the 20s.
And they look so goofy. But I love it because in the movie, this scene is just, I feel like the director was like, we're just going to give into the goofiness.
We're going to do it. Yeah, commit to it.
It's going to be silly. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And it is silly as shit. And I love it.
It's just vampires playing baseball.
Although I will say the effects of the super speed in this movie are rough.
Yeah. Not good.
They kind of have this like overly blurred effect to them when they run.
Yeah.
And it's very, and I mean, I'll be real. I think that's one of the hardest effects to get, even in big budget movies. For some reason, it's tough to convey someone moving at super fast speed in a way that doesn't look stupid.
Yeah.
So I'll give them leeway, but all of this is on display in the baseball game. And I should have looked up what the song is, but they played this amazing song during it too.
Okay, and then now the villains enter the story.
Yes, they hear the fun shenanigans of baseball playing, and they emerge from the woods.
Now with 150 pages left to go in a 500-page book, Stephenie Meyer is like, maybe there should be like some kind of conflict that happens, like besides Edward being like, I'm moody.
Maybe I should just shoehorn a villain into this?
Yeah.
Out of nowhere? Now, I will give the movie credit, though.
I will, too.
They did a better job of establishing these villainous vampires attacking people in the town.
Yeah.
As this story is progressing.
Yeah, they show them kind of like throughout the movie. There's scenes of them kind of, attacking someone. And then there's scenes of Charlie, Bella's dad, because he's the chief of police, kind of investigating. And people are worried and they're like, what's going on? And, this is something that Bella like asks Edward about later. Once she realizes that he's a vampire, she's like, who is like doing all these killings? Is it another vampire? And they're like, yeah, it's an evil vampire.
Yeah, I felt like that could have played a little bit more into their conflict or their like issues. Like maybe she believes it's
That's
them.
what I was wondering too.
Yeah.
I was like, she's doing all this research, trying to like research to
Yeah.
figure out if he's a vampire or not. And like there's these killings going on and she can clearly link them. But she doesn't bring that up to Edward at all. She's not worried that like he's the one that's killing people. But I do like that they have it kind of speckled throughout the movie because it makes the film more interesting because it's like, ooh, something like interesting is going to happen later, or there's like action that's coming up, Whereas in the book, it was just like Edward, love, 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 Edward, love, and then evil vampires.
Alice mentions once about seeing vampires coming to their area, and that feels like Stephanie Meyer's backtracked and like inserted a random line about that. But so these vampires show up. The vampires are I'm definitely remembering this off the top of my head. James, Victoria. Victoria.
Can you not read your own writing?
What do you mean? And Laurent.
Laurent. Wow.
I am 1 for 3. It was James too. So these 3 barefooted, feral kind of vampires emerge from the woods.
And they're like, we want to play baseball. We also love baseball.
As you know,
all vampires love baseball.
And we'd love to play baseball with you. But then they catch a whiff. They catch a whiff of Bella's stank.
Yeah, 'cause she smells real good.
Yep. And the one vampire, it all happens real suddenly.
Yeah.
But they kind of rush Bella out of there. The other vampires agree they're not going to hunt anyone in the area.
The other vampire, Laurent.
Yes, Laurent agrees not to hunt anyone. And they get Bella out of there because they don't want things to escalate. But Edward's freaking out.
Yeah.
Edward's like losing his shit. And and it works, this part, even though it's very convenient. But Edward's like, I read his mind.
Yeah.
He smelled you and he's a tracker.
And he saw how we all tried to protect you. So now he's like, oh, this is like the perfect game.
Yeah.
To try to kill this human where all these vampires are trying to protect her for some unknown reason.
Yeah, the motives are like, what?
Yeah.
But the way Edward like immediately knows because he reads his mind.
Yeah.
It works well enough, but it's still kind of, this random vampire shows up and now he's going to kill Bella.
Instantly wants to kill Bella because you know how everyone wants to kill Bella.
Yes. This whole climax happens with this random vampire. And I couldn't help but think that this would have been way more interesting in the story if maybe this was one of the family members who suddenly turns to like want to kill Bella, I mean, obviously this would have to rework either characters or add a character or something, but it would have made it way more interesting if it was someone they had an actual connection to.
Then everyone would be more invested.
Yeah, there'd be more drama and tension between like the vampires and this person who's after Bella, and there might be more personal motivation. And I felt like that would have been a more interesting way.
Instead, it's just like a clear cut, the bad guy comes in.
Yeah, the bad guy saunters into town.
Yeah.
But so this begins the convoluted setup for the final act.
Yeah, in which like Edward wants to run away with Bella, but Bella is like, no, we have to protect Charlie and like my family. And so it's this whole weird setup where like Bella tells Charlie she's leaving and she like breaks his heart. It's very sad. We're all really sad about it.
And everyone is real broken up.
And then she goes with Alice and Jasper to Phoenix, and Edward stays to try to kill the tracker, and they try to mislead the tracker. but then the tracker kind of realizes that it's a ploy, and then he
so
goes
he
to
boards
find
a
her.
plane.
Yeah.
I found it so weird that they got on planes.
I know.
Like they're all
Like normal people.
Yeah, they're all running through like the woods at super fast speeds,
Like
tracking each
barefoot,
other. And then he's
yeah.
like, I better go catch that 4 p.m. flight out of Forks.
Yeah, and so he goes to like find her, and then basically figures out where she used to live and is like threatening her, and ends up contacting Bella somehow while she's at the hotel with Alice and Jasper.
Yeah, because she got a cell phone to communicate with Edward, and
Yeah.
he found out I mean, look,
It's so complicated.
it's way overly convoluted, and I know it seems like
we don't know what we're talking about.
we don't know what we're talking, and we kind of almost don't because, but that's on Stephanie Meyer, okay? Like,
It's just confusing as all get out.
it is. It's just, it just all happens at once.
Yeah.
And in the book, so Edward and Bella are separated.
Yeah.
And in the book and movie, Bella's staying in this hotel with Alice and Jasper.
Yeah.
And it's so long in the book.
It's so long, and Bella's just like, I'm so sad.
And Alice is having visions of a
Ballet
studio, and she sees a VCR TV and doesn't know what it means. And spoiler alert, it means nothing. It's like built up to be this big climax.
I mean, they do use this part in the book to kind of cement Bella and Alice's friendship a little, which I like.
Yeah, I do like that.
But it is kind of boring. Like, it's just the stream of consciousness again of like Bella being like, I paced around the hotel room, then I like went to bed and was panicking, and then I was crying, and then
And Jasper tried to calm me down with his powers, and I'm like, no.
and so basically, you know, she ends up James, the evil vampire, calls her somehow and is like, I have your mom. Like, get to this ballet studio.
And she can hear like Bella, like in the
her
background.
mom's voice. Yeah. And then she gets there and her mom is not there. It's just like an old tape
That
of
he
her.
took from her mom's house.
Yeah.
And that's like the VCR thing.
Yeah.
And it was like, I guess foreshadowing that he didn't have her mom.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like, okay.
Okay.
Also, can I just say how stupid it is that Bella went there alone
Yeah.
to save her mom?
Like, why wouldn't she tell? Like, if anyone could stop him, it would be like Alice, who couldn't see
Yeah.
the future. Like, she could
has
find out.
She has 7 vampires on her side.
Yeah.
And just because he's like, now don't bring anyone, she's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
I won't. So she shows up to this ballet studio.
Yeah, and then he tries to kill her, and then Edward shows up, and she's only half dead. And they kill him, obviously. And it's interesting because, like, Bella sort of, you know, gets knocked around a lot and is sort of like not paying attention to what's going on, what's happening. So in the book, the whole like fight scene and like showdown between Edward and James,
Yeah.
like happens sort of like off the page, like in the background of her being like, oh, my leg is broken.
Yeah. My leg's broken. Edward.
But you like don't get to see really what's happening in this fight.
No, it's-
in the movie. There's more of like the showdown, which I kind of like. There's
Yeah.
this fight.
It's cheesy.
Yeah,
You know, he's
but
like,
you kind of want it at this
Yeah.
point. You need like, yes, let's see the fight. Like,
yeah, you want to see the fight. Like,
Yeah.
come on. 2 vampires duking it out.
yeah, and plus in the movie, Alice just pops his head off.
Oh
She,
my
like,
God, I
jumps
loved
on top
that.
of his head and just pulls it right off.
It was great. And then they're like, they make a bonfire out of him to kill him.
Oh my God.
And they're like dancing around his like burning carcass. It's super weird.
You can see Bella in the foreground like screaming,
And she's
'cause
like,
she's
"What-
in pain.
what the fuck
and
is
then just in
happening?"
the background, you can see like either Jasper or Emmett or somebody like throwing shit onto the fire and just kind of like being around the fire.
So the big issue is that before he died, James bit Bella.
Yeah.
And now the venom, which turns you into a vampire, is going through her veins.
Yeah.
So we actually watched the movie before I got to this part in the book. Mm-hmm. And so when we get to this part, Carlisle is there, everyone's there, and he tells Edward, you have to suck the venom out of her.
Yeah.
And he's like, if I start drinking her blood, I won't be able to stop. And he's like, you'll just have to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why doesn't Carlisle do this?
Yeah.
He's proven that he's the one with the most self-restraint out of
Yeah.
any of them. Why wouldn't he suck the blood out or the
Yeah.
venom out? Now, in the book, it makes sense a little bit because Bella cuts her head too and is
Yeah.
bleeding. And maybe this was kind of happening in the movie and I just didn't notice it. But Carlisle was like, I have to stitch her head up to stop the bleeding, especially if you're going to be draining more of her blood out.
Yeah.
So I have to do this. I can't be the one to like drink her blood too.
Yeah. So basically Edward's like, oh, I'll like put myself to the test and like suck her blood and save her.
As cheesy as it is, I do really like this setup as a climax. Because it was a smart way to have this setup that didn't feel too forced.
Yeah.
Where Edward is like put to the test of like, will he kill her or can he
resist?
Can he resist himself?
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah.
So
And Bella's okay. She's in the hospital and they tell her parents that she fell through a window.
she fell down 2 flights of steps and through a plate glass window. How did they explain the bite mark though?
I don't know.
It's like, oh, you fell down.
And then a dog bit you.
And then a dog bit you. For good measure.
After you were like lying on the ground outside a window, a dog just came up to you and bit you.
It just started gnawing on you. He thought you were dead. So she's in the hospital and her mom's there and her dad's there and she's like, oh, it was a terrible dream and you were there and you were there. And so are you, Edward. But and so that's kind of the resolution of this issue.
She's alive and Edward saved her. And they do have this sort of confrontation where she wants him to turn her into a vampire eventually.
Apparently feeling like you're burning alive isn't good enough to experience once. You have to do it again.
Yeah, she's like, do it to me again. But yeah, she kind of has talked to Alice and Alice has sort of admitted that she's seen a vision of Bella as a vampire. And Bella's like, oh, that's a coincidence because I would also like to be a vampire. And, who can blame her? Like, who can blame her for wanting to be equal to Edward? You know? Like, oh, wow, it would be nice if I could also run as fast as you, Edward, or like compete with you, or
I wish I had
that you could
sparkly
do.
skin,
Yeah.
Edward.
And she's always talking about how Edward is perfect at everything.
Yeah.
Which is kind of annoying, but like, she wants to be on his level.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I accept that.
And he's like, no, you're going to stay down.
And he's basically like, no, I know what's best for you. And you don't. She's like, well, we'll see.
We'll just see what happens, Edward. So then we get the epilogue.
Yeah. They go to prom.
We haven't mentioned him yet, but Jacob is there.
Yeah.
Jacob shows up.
He's like a minor character in this book.
Yeah,
he doesn't have much to do.
No. He just kind of informs her of some of the vampire stuff.
Yeah, the legends.
Like the legends, yeah.
From his tribe.
I will say, though, I think this is Taylor Lautner's best performance in the series. I think it's because he's just, like, very natural and casual.
Yeah, he's not trying to be super serious and, like, broody and dramatic.
Yeah, I think it's later when he has to, like, turn the intensity up that it just is real bad.
Doesn't work.
It does not work at all.
Yeah, he's kind of, like, easygoing, and it's just sort of like, whatever, like, I'm young.
Yeah.
I have long hair.
Don't get used to it, though. And we get a beautiful dancing scene with Bella and Edward.
And Iron and Wine.
And Iron and Wine. That's who I knew. I could not think of who sang that song at the end.
It's a good song.
It's a really good song. I love that song.
Yeah.
I just couldn't think of who sang it. That's how much I love it. But yeah, even like there's a moment at the end where he kind of like tips her over and it acts like he's gonna
bite her.
And it's cheesy, but it's hard to say why certain scenes work better than others.
Yeah.
But like this was a scene that I kind of liked. It was kind of
giving into that vampire style of movie a little.
Yeah.
Like that scene with the exposed neck and yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of playful. You knew he wasn't going to do it, but it was still kind of romantic in a more, and maybe not as over the head way as other scenes in the movie are. But I thought it ended pretty well.
I think so too.
Yeah. So, what's better, the book or the movie?
So much as my 15-year-old self would disagree, I'm going to have to say the movie in this
Yeah.
case. Just because, and something I noticed when we were watching the movie is there are a lot of scenes that kind of like pan away and show them kind of like laying in the meadow or like sitting in a tree, because they sit in trees a lot in the movie, but they're just like talking.
Yeah.
And it's not, we don't hear what they're saying, but it's just, you can see them talking and they're kind of like smiling at each other. And you can tell there's like this conversation flowing.
Yeah.
And I just like that. I don't know why. This is not the sole reason that I like the movie better, but it's one of the reasons. Like, it's just kind of like showing that they have this relationship and camaraderie that they can like kind of talk back and forth and have this like conversation going. Whereas in the book, like, they are having conversations, but it's mostly about Edward and about like why they shouldn't be together, or why like things are complicated for them. And I'm like, I don't want to like, I just want them to have normal conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciated this movie because we love the other ones a whole lot because they're just so
silly.
They're so silly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're and just kind of non things.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, like there's such a lack of style and substance in the later movies.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate this one because it feels the most sincere out of any of them.
It does feel sincere. That's a good word to use.
Yeah, it feels like it wasn't an ironic kind of, not that they were ever like intentionally ironic.
Yeah.
But it felt like the most trying to honestly convey this story and this love. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated the attempt. And I think they were more successful than other films in the series.
Yeah.
But I don't like talking about the length issue
Yeah.
a whole lot, but Twilight is a 500-page book.
It is. And a lot of that is when she's in school.
Remember how much you were mad at Christine for being 500 pages?
I know. Yeah.
This was possibly worse for me because...
Although I did find when I was rereading it that I was kind of caught up in this story and I did want to keep reading. So even though it was long, it still had that quality to it where I was like, I wanted to keep reading, for me anyway.
Yeah, I didn't get that. And I'm not saying it's only because of nostalgia that you had that, but I don't know. I just felt I really had to push myself to keep reading.
Yeah.
And when we got to the later parts of the book, I was more encouraged to continue when it was out of the high school portion. But
yeah,
definitely movie on this one, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like most of the actresses and actors in it, you know?
Yeah.
I think they do a decent job.
I think Robert Pattinson, I think he's really, whether you like him in this or not, I think he's a good actor.
Yeah.
And Kristen Stewart, she's in a lot of movies that I like.
Yeah.
Adventureland is one of our favorites, and I think she's great in that.
Yeah.
And I think she's good in this one. I think she's fine, you know.
Yeah.
Not the best. Like
No.
they're not, amazing performances or anything.
No.
Edward has some pretty silly, goofy lines and everything.
But most of that is from the book, though.
It's true. It is.
Like the whole lion fell in love with the lamb.
So the lamb falls in love with the lion. We get it.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked it. I liked watching the movie. Although I kind of enjoyed reading the book again too. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about it too much.
Well, let's move on before you change your mind. Let's go to lightning round.
Lightning round. Okay, so before they have their iconic scene in the meadow, Edward takes her through the forest, and when they're about to go into the forest, he takes off his sweater or coat that he had on, and then she turns towards him and he's wearing a sleeveless white button-up shirt but unbuttoned.
Yeah,
So
to
it's
reveal
like
his chest.
Sleeveless white button-up.
What we had a whole discussion about what this shirt is, which it doesn't sound like a shirt, it sounds like a vest.
It does. Yeah.
It's sleeveless. Now, I think my theory is that she meant a short-sleeved button-up.
Oh, instead of
which makes sense. But she says sleeveless.
Sleeveless, specifically.
Which is a vest.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is he, a Chippendale dancer? He's got it unbuttoned and showing off his abs and stuff. But We just had a whole debate about like
Is this like some kind of old piece of clothing from 1901 that we like don't know what she's talking about? It seems so small, but we were just like, what? Wait, what? What is this shirt?
What is she describing? I don't get it. Okay, so just to fully I thought there's a lot of silly parts like talking about the romance and their love.
Yeah.
But I loved this key part. It's right when they're starting to really be attracted to each other and Edward's like following her around.
Yeah.
And this is their dramatic goodbye, classroom goodbye. He walked me to my next class in silence and paused at the door. I turned to say goodbye. His face startled me. His expression was torn, almost pained, and so fiercely beautiful that the ache to touch him flared as strong as before. My goodbye stuck in my throat. He raised his hand, hesitant, conflict raging in his eyes, and then swiftly brushed the length of my cheekbone with his fingertips. His skin was as icy as ever, but the trail his fingertips left on my skin was alarmingly warm, like I'd been burned, but didn't feel the pain of it yet. He turned without a word and strode quickly away from me. This is Edward walking her to gym class.
So dramatic.
That entire scene was him saying goodbye when she goes to gym. It's amazing. I love that
It's so
part.
dramatic.
It's so great.
Oh my gosh. So in the movie, they keep like showing Twizzlers in the movie.
Yeah,
Like,
Twizzlers definitely sponsored this movie.
Yeah, there's a scene where the kids in the parking lot are like throwing Twizzlers at Bella to like get her attention.
Yeah.
And then they like go to the beach and then they're eating Twizzlers in the car. And
She's
I'm just
like, you want a Twizzler?
Want a Twizzler?
And she looks at the, no, she doesn't.
Twizzlers, a great snack.
But yeah, it was like, they were in there twice, and I'm like, definitely
Yeah.
sponsored.
Yeah.
That's actually it for the lightning round.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think there was so much.
It's all ridiculous in some way.
It's all tied into the movie so much in the book that
Yeah.
we've covered most of the funny things we wanted to talk about anyway. So,
Oh, what about butt crack Santa?
oh my God, yes. So in the movie, thank you. Wait, why is he butt crack Santa?
Because like you would always see his butt crack.
Oh, I forgot that tidbit.
Yeah.
It was when Bella's back in town, like everyone's weirdly small town nice to her.
Yeah.
And this one dude comes up, he's like, remember me, Bella? Like you sat on my lap when I was Santa.
Yeah.
And her dad's like, that was when she was 4.
And then one of the like waitresses in the diner is like butt crack Santa or something. And then he's the one that gets killed.
Yeah. And it wasn't until like 2 scenes after his murder that I was like, wait, was that the Santa guy? I was like, I guess that explains why. Because before then, I'm like, why
is this scene in here?
why was this guy there? And I guess it was just to establish him before he was eaten by vampires. I'm glad you remembered that.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
it.
That wraps it up for us. So I hope you guys liked this episode. We really enjoyed doing Twilight, reading it, watching
Yeah.
it. And so if you guys really like it, please let us know because we will do the other ones.
We
We
will.
will do the other ones.
I'm saying now, before I chicken out, I will read and watch the other.
We could have 3 more episodes.
Yeah.
So,
Let us know if you like it.
yeah.
And we'll do the other ones. If you want to let us know what you think
Yes.
about it, you can follow us and tweet us on Twitter at cover2credits. That's with the number 2. Or you can email us at cover2creditspod@gmail.com. Send us other suggestions of things you want us to cover or your thoughts on any of the episodes we've done. Just anything, is great. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, find us on Facebook too. We post a lot of updates on there, new episodes. And if you like what you hear, leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us to get some more listeners if you say that you like what you hear.
Even if it's just a star rating, just click that 5-star and that's all you have to do. You're done. You're out. No commitment. All right. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.